who's the biggest winner and loser of the NBA draft? I want to mix this up a little bit because on paper, just in general, Dallas is the biggest winner. I just mentioned Dallas and Cooper Flag and what I think they could do. So I don't want to be that obvious, though. So beyond Dallas, who we all know is a winner, who is the biggest winner and who is the biggest loser of the NBA draft? Okay. The biggest winner of the NBA draft beyond Dallas are the Memphis Grizzlies. Yes, I said it. The Memphis Grizzlies are the biggest winners of the NBA draft beyond Dallas. What they did to trade up to get Cedric Coward was incredible. Okay, incredible. I think that's a really, 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 really big deal. It offsets the Desmond Bain trade. We're going to talk about that in a second, but that's the biggest one they did, but there's a couple other big ones they did too. But let's get to Cedric Howard first, okay? Cedric Howard is, and by the way, it's not Cedric Howard, Cedric Coward. He is a 6'6" wing guy who at Washington State last year shot 40% from three, 84% from the free throw line, averaged 17.7 points, okay, and 557 from the field. A very efficient shooter, had one of the best effective field goal percentages in the nation at 656, and it was 644 the year before. Now, he was at Washington State, and before that, he was at Eastern Washington for 2 years. The thing about Cedric Coward is he's your typical type of player that grows into an elite player when he's not that coming out of high school. You see this with a lot of kids in basketball more than football. You see kids that haven't hit a growth spurt yet, haven't done this or that, and by their sophomore, junior years, they're elite. It's underrated because of the one and done era. You look at guys and try to see how ready they are immediately, but college basketball is just like college football, where in a lot of college football situations, a lot of people don't break out until their sophomore and junior years because they got to hit a growth spurt and they weren't highly touted as recruits. It's not, it seems weirder in the NBA, but I think Cedric Coward is that guy. And obviously Memphis has Ja Morant, who had his own little spurt at Murray State when he was not recruited high. If Ja Morant can stay healthy, Cedric Coward coming in with Jaren Jackson Jr. and Ja Morant could make for a great lineup. And by the way, this totally offsets the Desmond Bain trade. Now, Cedric Howard, to be fair, only played 6 games with Washington State last year. We have to be, so he was dealing with you're really looking at what he did at Eastern Washington, but he was coming off an injury it was a shoulder injury, so you have to hope that his shot is there. But I think that's why he fell down to number 11. And look, what he did at Eastern Washington is why Washington State wanted him so bad last year, because before that he was at Eastern Washington and he averaged 15.4 points per game, 38.3% from the field, from 3-point range, and 644 effective field goal percentage. Look, Cedric Howard, you got an athletic wing who can shoot. I think the Grizzlies are a huge, huge winner here. And I can say, as a Grizzly fan, I love it. And I'm objective on this as a Grizzly fan. I'm known to be down on my team, as you'll learn with me, the way I follow my Titans in the fall. But beyond that, the Grizzlies got other key players, okay? They got Javon Small. Now, Javon Small is a very good shooter, not the most efficient from the field, 41.8% from the field, but he is 35.3% from three, and that could get better. And he averaged 5.6 assists last year. I think Javon Small is a bit of a project who could end up being very, very good coming out of Indiana. Played at East Carolina, Oklahoma State, and West Virginia. Hasn't had always the best coaching, but I do think with Javon Small, you are going to end up seeing him get much, much better as the year goes on. And last year, that 41.8% from the field, homeboy shot nearly 7.5 threes a game. Okay, so let's be fair on that. I do like Javon Small. And then Jemai Meshack, who they got out of Tennessee, who is a very solid wing player, I like too. So between the three of them, I think Memphis has a great, great pick. And Meshack is actually officially to Houston. So excuse me. So Memphis and Memphis landing Javon Small and Cedric Howard. I take that back. No, Memphis is getting Jemai Meshack. Okay. So yeah, no, another great wing player. That's a great pickup for them. Mr. Irrelevant for the NBA draft, if you will, but they landed him. I think Memphis is a huge winner. The biggest loser of the NBA draft, and this is a hot take. Are you guys ready? Fasten your seatbelts. The San Antonio Spurs. Yes, that's right. The San Antonio Spurs are the biggest losers of the NBA draft. And that is my hot take. And I don't really care what anybody thinks about it. Okay. Because I think the way they drafted was highly overrated and highly anathema to the franchise that built a borderline dynasty during the Greg Popovich era for a while. Okay. I mean, I get that Brian Wright I get that Popovich is still there, RC Buford is still there, but it's time to move on from Brian Wright. I think the San Antonio Spurs need to move on from Brian Wright. Let's look at what they did. I just talked about why I don't believe in Dylan Harper. Okay, Dylan Harper, again, part of your production is being able to get your team to the NCAA tournament in college. And if you can't do that, if you can't get your team to the NCAA tournament in college, you're not a top 5 pick. And Harper played with an alleged other top 5 pick in Ace Bailey and still couldn't get his team to the NCAA tournament. He couldn't even get him to a winning record. Rutgers was 15-17. So how are you going to sit there and say he's the second best player in the NBA draft and the Spurs picked him second? That's not going to be complimentary of Victor Wembanyama. I don't believe it for 1 second. But more importantly, the Spurs also had another pick from Atlanta, the 14th pick, and they picked Carter Bryant, another freshman. Carter Bryant and Dylan Harper are both freshmen. Carter Bryant played 37 games for Arizona last year, started 5 of them, averaged 6.5 points, 69.5% from the free throw line. I'm sorry. This is ridiculous. A 1-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, a 6'8 guard. They loved him because he was 6'8, 225 pounds. The same way they loved Dylan Harper because he was 6'6, 215. They fell in love with the size. The San Antonio Spurs did not find the complementary pieces to Victor Wembanyama. They didn't. By the way, they have fallen in love with the idea of Victor Wembanyama as the next LeBron James and have felt no need to try to address the situations of improving his game or getting the right players around him. With Brian Wright taking over in 2019, the San Antonio Spurs have completely deviated from a very key thing that always made them great. And that is the fact that they valued production at other levels before they drafted people under Greg Popovich. They drafted Tim Duncan after he was a 4-year player. They drafted Kawhi Leonard after 2 productive years at San Diego State. They went after DeJuan Blair after a very productive career at Pittsburgh, and that helped them get the best record in the NBA in 2010, 2011. Now they draft solely off potential. They went from the franchise that drafted 4-year guys and proven guys in college to drafting a lottery pick who couldn't even carry his team to a winning record and another player who came off the bench and couldn't even average 7 points a game. That is a complete departure from everything the San Antonio Spurs represents, and it's why they are going to remain down in the dumps as a franchise, even with RC Buford and Greg Popovich there. I think it might be time to move on from Greg Popovich. I don't think this franchise is the same franchise that it was when Greg Popovich was the head coach. It's just not run as well. I'm sorry. What Brian Wright is doing there is not worthy of celebrating. RC Buford needs to take back over the franchise, and Greg Popovich needs to take back over because part of this falls on Greg Popovich too. The Spurs are the clear-cut losers of the NBA draft. I don't even think it's close, honestly. I don't even think it's close. And they have completely disgraced everything they stood for when they went and won those 5 rings, given everything that's happened. So I think the Spurs are the biggest loser. The Grizzlies are the biggest winner.